Hello. Perhaps this is why, when the dinosaurs died out, mammals were able to take over their niche and eventually evolved into us. But what if things had been different and dinosaurs had continued to evolve, inventing agriculture, culture, and language? Small and clumsy dinosaur Arlo was not a brave boy since childhood. But soon he will have a meeting that will change his life forever. A brave and original boy climbs over the fence of his family's dinosaur farm to face his deepest fears. Will he be able to overcome them and become someone who inspires fear rather than experiences it? 65 million years ago, a huge rock broke out of the asteroid belt and flew straight towards Earth. As it enters the atmosphere, it heats up, posing a threat to all living things. But the dinosaurs look up and see only a bright flash high in the sky. An asteroid flies past the planet at great speed. Millions of years later, at the foot of 3 snow-capped peaks, lives a family of 2 apatosaurus named Henry and Ida. The herbivorous dinosaurs own a small farm with a house and a fence that protects their cornfield. It's time to plant a new crop. Henry plows the earth with his nose like a plow, and his wife follows him, pouring out seeds from a special device. Henry then collects water from a nearby river and waters the overgrown plants. At this moment, Ida calls him into the house. One of the 3 eggs begins to hatch into a chick. The first to appear is a girl named Libby, who begins to explore the world around her with interest and deftly climbs onto her mother's back. A restless male, Buck, follows her. The boy crashes into a pole at full speed and is freed from the remains of his skull. Then he sees a stick on the ground and starts hitting it with everything he can reach, and the first target becomes the father's knee. The third turn is the largest egg. The parents bend over him, expecting to see a giant. Buck helps his brother out by placing a stick under the egg. But instead of a big and strong dinosaur, there is a baby dinosaur inside named Arlo. The tiny boy looks out and chooses to hide back. The father calls to his son, who clings to the egg, and Arlo slowly emerges, teetering on his thin legs. The clumsy dinosaur can barely keep up with his brother and sister, and Henry introduces the children to the farm and 3-Claw Mountain. Now he and his wife have 3 assistants. A few years pass, and the cunning Libby splashes water on Buck, and he spits at her in response. She hides in the field, and thus quickly copes with the task of watering the crop, while his brother goes to collect branches. Little Arlo will have to feed the livestock. Ida hangs a sack of corn around his neck, and Arlo staggers into the barn. He goes inside and is terribly frightened by the rustling in the bushes, but it turns out that the monster is just a chicken with its foot stuck in the grass. The dinosaur frees him, but is met with a menacing look from the mother hen. With a hoarse cry, Arlo jerks his legs away from the aggressive bird. In a panic, he almost falls off the cliff into the river, but his father catches him by the tail. "You can't mess around with the river. Who are we running from, Dad? Henrietta is an evil monster, not a chicken." Henry built a stone tower where the corn supplies would be reliably protected from intruders. He seals the door with a balloon, and Ida suggests that her husband leave a mark on the wall of the building to emphasize the importance of the moment. Henry asks his wife to do it first because she has done no less for their family. Parents take turns leaving their fingerprints, and children rush to follow their example, but Henry stops them. For this gesture to be truly meaningful, he needs to earn it through his actions. "It's time for each of you to leave your mark." Years go by, and the grown-up Bug gains enough strength to clear the place for the sowing from the trees. After that, Libby alone plows the field, repeating after her father. For this, both get the opportunity to leave their marks on the stones. Arlo continues to run away from the chicken, and with envy he looks at the success of his relatives. Desiring to earn his mark, he gains determination and goes to string the chicken. But in the backyard, he sees Buck, who pretends that he was spied on until half-death. Arlo gets a prank, and his brother scares him with a chicken doll. Buck calls Arlo a coward and says that he only bothers everyone. The party is interrupted by parents who are trying to support their son. But Arlo seems to have despaired of bringing benefit to the family and leaving his mark. He leaves, calling this tradition stupid and useless. Concerned by his son's mood, Henry wakes Arlo up at night and calls him to the field. The boy is afraid of the dark and clings closer to his father when he offers to go out to the middle of the meadow. The bug lands on Arlo's nose, making him nervous. But the father promises that if he overcomes his fear, he can see unearthly beauty. He blows off the flower and begins to run on the grass, raising hundreds of small lights into the air. Arlo joins in to also create bizarre patterns of glowing bugs on the field. He joyfully rushes forward, forgetting about fear. The father reports that he has a special job for Arlo, so that he can leave his mark. The next day, Henry leads his son to the storeroom and tells him that some villain has learned to climb inside and eat corn. In order to have food left for them in winter, the father instructs Arlo to catch the thief. They build a trap of ropes and nets together and put corn husks as bait. Using a pumpkin and a club, Henry shows how to kill a captured creature, and this is very scary for Arlo. But only in this way can he leave his mark next to his father's and gain the determination to complete the task. He begins to watch the storeroom every day and soon hears that the trap has worked. With a club in his teeth, he gets closer and sees a human child who is desperately trying to get out. He screams like a wild beast and rushes to Arlo, scaring the dinosaur. But the net firmly holds the boy and then wraps around his neck and begins to strangle. Arlo carries a club but cannot force himself to hit the baby. Instead, he cuts the rope and tells him to run. But the boy does not hurry to the shelter and instead crawls straight to the dinosaur, continuing to actively sniff him. Arlo screams again and falls from panic, and his father runs to the scene. Afraid of the little predator, Henry chases his son, who could not cope with the assignment. To make Arlo pay for his guilt, the father calls him with him after the running boy. They leave the border of the farm and go along the riverbank. Arlo, who was so far from home for the first time, is very afraid to get lost. Henry explains to his son that he just needs to look for a river and it will always bring him back to the farm. Then a strong thunderstorm begins, and the father begins to lose track of the man. Under the deafening rumbles of thunder, he begins to run faster, but Arlo lags behind and falls, hitting the stone hard. Seeing that his son can no longer continue the chase, Henry softens. He just wanted to help Arlo overcome his fears and teach him to survive in this difficult world. The father continues to believe in his son, despite his failure. "But I'm not you. I am the one you will become later." They turn back together, but at this moment a landslide descends from the mountain, and the river comes out of the banks. Henry notices a huge wave that rushes right at them and throws Arlo higher on the stones. He himself tries to climb the trail, but slips on the wet rocks. A stormy stream of mud and stones covers the dinosaur with its head and carries it away. The helpless Arlo continues to call his father, but does not receive an answer. Having buried her husband, Ida takes care of him. She falls from fatigue, trying to collect enough supplies before the cold comes. Little Arlo helps her as best he can, but he does not have enough strength to replace his father. With sadness, he looks at the trail left by Henry in the storage room, as he suddenly notices a familiar corn eater inside. Angry at the impudent boy, Arlo chases him. He accuses the thief of the death of his father and loses control over himself, falling straight into the river with a man on his nose. The dinosaur calls for help, but no one hears him. The current carries him away from home and plunges him deep into the water, where Arlo hits his head against a rock. He dives to the surface, but loses consciousness. Arlo wakes up on the shore. His whole body aches from the blows to the stone. He looks around and realizes that he is very far from his home. Trying to climb the rock to make his way, he slips again and hits himself. Suddenly he hears a strange howl and sees a boy at the top of the rock. Arlo is filled with anger again, and he still clumsily climbs up to get the enemy. The boy calmly watches the screaming dinosaur and hides from him in time. Arlo examines the area from a height and, in horror, discovers that the only landmark he has is a river. No mountains, no farms, nothing nearby reminds him of home. He begins to walk along the shore and soon feels that he is hungry. Having noticed the berries on a high branch, he gets up on a stone to get them, but falls again. Another small failure leads to a disaster, and now the dinosaur's leg is hopelessly stuck under a boulder. The sun is hiding behind the horizon, but Arlo has not gotten out of the stone trap. He falls asleep, and in the morning, he will hear the sound of geysers from a valley nearby. The dinosaur, as usual, shudders in fear, discovering that his leg is now calmly climbing out of under the stone. Last night someone made a dig, which saved him from a fatal death. Arlo continues his journey along the shore and falls under a downpour. He tries to build a shelter for himself, but his flimsy hut makes even the rodents who hide nearby laugh. Wet and hungry, he sleeps, trying to regain some strength. From the next sound, his heart goes to his heels. Someone runs to him through the bushes. But it turns out to be the same boy who carries a lizard in his teeth. Arlo is still angry and drives the boy away. Arlo is still angry and drives the boy away. But the man gives up his prey to the dinosaur and offers to eat it. Realizing that he is eating something else, the little hunter catches a huge beetle and even bites off his head so that Arlo is not so disgusting. But the herbivorous animal still refuses to feed, and for the third time before Arlo, there is a bunch of ripe berries. Stubborn Arlo continues to resist, but hunger takes over and he rushes for the long-awaited food. "I'll shake my soul anyway, but while I'm alive, bring me more." Not sure that he is understood, Arlo shows the boy a branch with berries, and he grabs it and runs away. The dinosaur barely keeps up with the clever baby, which jumps from tree to tree no worse than monkeys. They reach a thin ledge on the rock from which Arlo almost falls. In addition, on their way, there is a cliff through which it is impossible to go further. Without thinking for a long time, the boy bites the dinosaur so that he jumps forward and grabs his mouth for the stone. Arlo forms a bridge with his body, and the boy climbs to the other side. It is here that the tree grows, the branches of which break from the juicy red berries. The dinosaur also overcomes the abyss and runs forward, but the boy from something tries to block his way. He shouts fiercely, but Arlo does not listen and grabs the berries. Here, a huge snake lands right on his nose. The dinosaur throws it down, but it steps on its own and flies away. The tree softens its fall, but the snake is again right in front of Arlo. She approaches Arlo, but the boy bravely stands in her way. Cleverly dodging the throw, he climbs up to her from behind and sucks his teeth into the crawling enemy. Having met such a formidable and fearless opponent, the snake admits defeat and hides in the bushes. Arlo can no longer be angry with the boy and suddenly hears a voice from the grove greeting him. Looking around, he sees a large-horned styracosaurus named Forest, on which a whole bunch of small forest animals sit. According to him, they all protect him from various dangers that await him in the forest. And the boy's strange dinosaur also wants to take over the team. Forest asks what his name is, but Arlo does not know. They begin to try to guess his name so that the person is picked up by the one to whom he responds. As a result, he responds to the name friend, who calls Arlo. Forest admits defeat, but his birdie still tries to pick up the boy. Arlo and friend hide from her and Forest and then continue to walk along the river. The boy hears the styracosaurus and chases him. The grunt hides in the den and friend blows him back. Arlo joins the fun, and soon dozens of styracosaurus fly out of the den from the powerful breath of the dinosaur. Displeased grunts climb on Arlo, driving them and friend to a ledge over the lake. Here one of them bites Arlo, causing the dinosaur to fall into the water. He tries his best to stay afloat and begins to repeat the boy's movements. So Arlo learns to swim and climbs to the shore unharmed. Except that now his body is completely covered with blood-sucking leeches, and the dinosaur shouts in terror again. To quench his hunger, on the way, Arlo decides to eat the fruits that fell from the tree. Friend joins the meal and notices that something is wrong with them. They turn out to be lost, which causes intoxication in both of them. Getting drunk only by the evening, friends go to the meadow, where Arlo shows the boy the styracosaurus. Friend really likes this game, and he catches one of the beetles. Arlo remembers his father and his family. "How I miss them all." The boy in confusion bows his head, and Arlo begins to tell him about his relatives. He breaks several sticks and makes figures of dinosaurs, saying that one of them is him, and the rest are Buck and Libby, Mom and Dad. Then he turns them around and says that this is his family. In response, the friend also takes several sticks and makes 3 of them, 2 large and 1 small, and then turns them around. But then he suddenly puts the large figures on the ground and buries them with the ground. Arlo does the same with his figure of his father and begins to cry. He really misses him. The friend hugs the dinosaur and then puts his hand on the buried figures and howls to the moon, showing his grief. Arlo joins this ritual. They wake up in a hug and continue on their way, but the terrible wind and storm prevent them from even taking a step. Arlo remembers how his father was carried away by the river, and he runs in panic where his eyes look. He turns under a fallen tree, and the friend finds him when the storm subsides. Arlo climbs out and realizes that he has run too far from the river and does not know how to return to it. From horror and despair, he falls on his knees and sees a flock of pterodactyls in the sky. Arlo calls them to ask the way home, while the friend runs away and hides. The Trinity lands next to the dinosaur and asks if Arlo is injured. Knowing that the guy is healthy, they are upset for some reason and are going to take off, but Arlo stops them. He asks to help him get to the three claws, and the leader Gromoglu says he knows the way. But first he wants to find the poor thing who got caught in the storm and need help. They hear an animal trapped under a fallen tree, and Arlo helps them free him. Gromoglu carefully lifts the furry beast, but instead of letting it go, he throws it in his mouth and swallows it. Now it's time to really get scared. Arlo notices that his friend is hiding under the debris and tries to sneak away, while the predators are trying to steal lunch from each other. Having figured it out, they surround Arlo and begin to sniff. The dinosaur tries to knock them off their feet, but when he nervously looks in the direction of his friend, he gives his shelter to Gromoglu. The boy jumps on Arlo's back and they rush to the cliff. From the forest, they run to the plain, where they see two huge dinosaurs. Thinking that they look like apatosaurus, Arlo asks for help, but it turns out to be two tyrannosaurs. Surrounded by predators from all sides, Arlo turns over his friend with a ball to somehow protect him. The tyrannosaurs first try to eat the pterodactyls, forcing them to retreat. Then they come closer to Arlo and open their mouths with giant fangs, anticipating a juicy dinner. Friends freeze from fear, but suddenly the giants help Arlo to get up and introduce themselves. Sister Ramsey and her brother Nash can't wait to hurt the little ones. They are glad that they were able to help and begin to prick each other. Immediately their father Butch appears, who makes his son observe the personal boundaries of his sister. Arlo notices a huge scar on his face. The tyrannosaurs do not know how to get to the three claws and are in a hurry to go in search of their flock of longhorn bulls, which Nash managed to miss. Arlo does not want to lose such powerful protection and offers to help. The friend has a great smell and can use it to find the bulls. Butch agrees and lets him sniff a piece of wool. The boy leads everyone forward and soon finds traces of the flock, but strange feathers and a dead bull lie nearby. Butch guesses that someone stole their flock. The dinosaurs follow further and find the bulls peacefully grazing in the neighboring field. Suspecting an ambush, the experienced Tyrannosaur commands Arlo to go to the open area and shout to lure the hijackers out of the shelter. Arlo is forced to agree and with shaking legs climbs on a stone. Out of fear, instead of a scream, he makes a sound more like the creak of a door. The friend comes to the rescue, biting the dinosaur by the leg, and the three raptors, who were hiding in the grass, come to the sound. They begin to interrogate Arlo and suspect him of lying. The predators jump on the calm violator, but the tyrannosaurs save the friends, entering the fight in time. Butch throws the raptor far into the herd, which, out of fear, rushes straight to Arlo. The dinosaur with the boy on his back manages to dodge the hooves, while the tyrannosaurs are trying to stop the herd. The raptor knocks down Nash with his feet, and they fight on the ground. Ramsey is in time for help and sends the enemy into flight with a powerful tail blow. Arlo hides behind the boulder, where the raptors smell him. Then Butch rushes into battle again, but two predators press him to the ground. He does not manage to get up, and then, having gathered all his courage in his fist, Arlo decides to attack. He accelerates and hits one raptor with his head, and the other is thrown off with a tail blow. Butch reflects the attempt to avenge the enemies, throwing them off the horizon. The sister and brother appeal to the escape of the other enemies. All together, they drive the herd to a safer place, and in the evening they gather by the fire. In the evening, Arlo and the raptor meet again. Nash wants to exchange his friend's smell for a harmonica, but Arlo refuses. He inspects the cut on his leg, and Ramsey tells him that there will be a good scar. The tyrannosaurs are very proud of their battle scars, and Nash begins to tell how he fought with a herd of stegosaurs, and after that he does not feel the claws on one of his legs. Ramsey tells how she was almost trampled by a herd of bulls. As proof, she shows a tail, the tip of which she bit herself to get out of under the stone and run away. Arlo is gaining courage and asks Butch about his scar. The dinosaur replies that he drank from a pond when he saw 3 pairs of eyes in the water. The crocodiles rushed at him, but he refused to be their dinner and quickly bit 2 in half. And the last one, and for a long time I had a crunch on my teeth. The children get goosebumps, and they ask to show the crocodiles a tooth stuck in their father's jaw. Arlo remembers his father, who was not afraid of anything either. And now it's time for him to stop, but Butch disagrees. Who said I wasn't afraid? You overcame the crocodiles. I overcame fear myself. The tyrannosaur replies that only those who are already dead are not afraid. but you can continue to act despite the fear, and then you will find out who you are. At this moment, the first snow falls from the sky. Arlo says that he needs to hurry home to help his mother, and his friends say that they will help him get to the water. In the morning, the tyrannosaurs chase the bulls ahead, and Arlo bravely helps to push the beaten individuals back into the herd. Here he notices the snow-covered peaks of 3 claws in the distance and says goodbye to the tyrannosaurs, who go after the herd. Together with a friend, they get closer and closer to the house, enjoying the picturesque views. They make a happy howl together, and suddenly someone answers to them. On the mountain, they notice a man who calls a friend. The boy wants to meet the man, but Arlo is afraid to lose a friend, so he picks him up and takes him away with him. He promises to give him food and a place to stay so that they live like brothers. Soon a storm comes, and Arlo is scared again by the sounds of thunder. Raising his head, he sees pterodactyls flying over the clouds. Their beaks stick out like shark fins. They attack from all sides, and the pterodactyl grabs his friend's claws. Trying to return him, Arlo falls down the cliff and is hopelessly entangled in the bushes. He can only watch as his friend is taken away by predators. A stone falls on the dinosaur's head, and he turns off. Waking up, he sees his father in front of him, who frees his son from the thickets. He hugs Arlo and silently leads him to the side of the house. Arlo is overjoyed that his father survived, but he wants to save his friend first and stops. Henry continues to move forward, and his son notices that his father is not leaving any traces. Arlo understands that this is just the fruit of his imagination, but he continues to tell his father about his friend. Henry replies that he always believed that his son would overcome fear and become as brave as his father. He lets Arlo go to save his friend, and he wakes up for real. Having escaped the thicket, he runs ahead and calls for the boy. Hearing the answer, he finds him inside the trunk of a tree surrounded by pterodactyls. Arlo is frightened by the pterodactyls, but they lift him into the air. Using his tail, the dinosaur drops a tree trunk on the enemies and frees himself. Gromogleyuv almost got his friend, and Arlo is given a thunderous roar that scares the pterodactyl. This allows the boy to bite the pterodactyl's wing, after which Arlo finishes him off with an accurate throw of a stick. But suddenly the river comes out of the shores again due to the power flow. The friend is trapped in the middle of the river. Arlo jumps straight to him and carries both of them with the current. Together with the trunks of trees, he carries his friend straight to the waterfall. Arlo swims to the friend, who unconsciously lies on a trunk of a drowning tree. The dinosaur manages to catch the boy at the last moment, and they fly down together with a stream of water. Arlo manages to pull his friend ashore, where he comes to his senses. The next day, they finally go out to the farm and hear the human roar again. The same man is standing on the hill, but now a woman and 2 children join him. The friend approaches them, starting to sniff, and people hug him. The boy likes it very much, but he still jumps Arlo back on his back to continue the journey. And then the dinosaur himself removes him and pushes him to people. When the baby does not understand what is happening, Arlo draws a circle around them on the ground. Friends hug for goodbye, and the boy leaves with his new family. Arlo goes through the rest of the journey alone, and soon he sees his relatives who are still managing the crop. The mother raises her head and does not believe her eyes. With tears of happiness, she rushes to her son, and Buck and Libby also hug their brother. Hearing his story, everyone approaches the storage room so that Arlo would leave his mark next to the imprint of his father. Having overcome all the obstacles and fears, he still returned home. This cartoon is one of the few from Pixar Studios that was not nominated for an Oscar. During production, the company had a very difficult period. Many employees were fired, and the director changed specifically for this project a year before it was released. The scene of the Battle of the Tyrannosaurs with the raptors is much like the scene from the Jurassic Park. Contrary to the image attached to the film, in this cartoon, the Tyrannosaurs are not negative characters, although initially they were conceived here as enemies of Arlo and his friend. It is interesting that a person in this story plays a role that is usually taken away by a dog and moves accordingly. But clumsy movements and Arlo's fall were based on the movements of a baby elephant. The name of the film, as always, look in the description for the video. In the meantime, answer in the comments what kind of fear you have not overcome yet. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel and like it so that cool plots come out as often as possible.